So I'm sorry that I've had such a long absence. There's been so much going on in my life. I've had some kind of scary things happen where someone was contacting me and was claiming that they knew like Chad and Lori Daybell and they were sort of a part of the group, and this person kept going on about thinking that he was Joseph Smith, which was sad. It just made my heart kind of went out to him, but at the same time it just is scary because you do hear a lot about those groups and these beliefs where they believe that people are demons and should just die. And then you've got this group of people where some people, like 5 people, have died. So it is scary. And so I've definitely gone pretty incognito and just really not knowing if like this channel is going to go anywhere, if there's any point, but I'm keeping the website up. I'm still working with some professionals and seeing what they think, and hopefully you'll see what they think someday too. Researching all this has been so much fun. It's been great, and I appreciate all the people that I've had support from. I'm just really sorry that I'm not that entertaining. That's kind of not my point. But I thought it'd be great today to just go ahead and do a video just talking about some of the things that I found out really recently, and I thought maybe it'd be best to do it this way. When I first got into this, the first picture I found was a painting, a daguerreotype that they believe matches the forward-facing RLDS painting that the Community of Christ owns, where he has that bouffant hairstyle and he has that collar that kind of comes up and just even the angle of the body. And so I just sort of believed as I read blogs that, you know, this idea that it comes from William B. McCarl's scholarly article that I'm going to talk about today, where there's this theory that that painting was based on a daguerreotype. And if you read a lot of blogs, you find a lot of people really think that William Major did that, and that does come from William B. McCarl, that he sort of segues a very long, well done article, but that's his theory. And so I really started to wonder, well, how come when I go to the Joseph Smith papers, I see that they show that RLDS painting and they state, well, this was done by David Rogers. Like, they don't say that they just think it is. They're like, it was done by David Rogers. And the Community of Christ, they believe it was done by David Rogers. If you go to the Church of Jesus Christ, it's a lot of churchofjesuschrist.org. If it ever pops up, they say done by David Rogers. So who's David Rogers? When did he do this painting? I've talked about this before. If you're new to my channel, I'll just reiterate that again. And so there's only 2 artists that we know Joseph Smith mentions in his journals as having painted him. There is this guy, Benjamin West, that did like a caricature. If you read Joseph Smith papers, it pops up an additional one with kind of bigger ears, and it's a caricature. They don't want him to look good, you know, but it does show some like a side part, receding hairline. Yeah, but from life in Nauvoo in 1842, Sutcliffe Maudsley first did a lithograph of Joseph Smith and painted him, but he was almost like next door neighbors with Joseph Smith. And then he does this one painting where he kind of looks like a little boy, and then he looks about 40 in another one, then he looks almost 80 in another one, and all of them you are seeing a receding hairline. So around that summertime, Joseph is losing his hair. But in September, David Rogers, that forward-facing painting that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, actual scholars do believe was done by David Rogers. You don't see a receding hairline at all, and you see much thicker hair. And so if you read William B. McCarl's article, he gives really great references. And one reference I'm going to talk about today is Junius F. Wells, who knew Carter. Okay, and so we do know in this article in 1885, the contributor, he talks about Carter doing copies of a daguerreotype of the painting of Joseph Smith. And unfortunately, people today, some people really believe it was a photo of Joseph Smith. I do not. And I'll explain here. I definitely think by reading this article, especially this specific reference, I think this is why the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, they believe Junius F. Wells, because he says that, and this is 1885, Emma Smith passes away in 1879, and Junius F. Wells says Emma refused to let this be copied throughout her whole lifetime. But there are many, many duplicate oil paintings. So if you read the 1910 letter by Joseph Smith III, he does mention one duplicate oil painting being in Iowa. I've talked to the Community Christ. They say that they have that. And then they have the original. And they said there are many other copies that they own. So that kept being repainted. And then there are daguerreotypes of that painting. So Junius F. Wells is talking about a daguerreotype of the painting, which I did find online. And they talk about how you got Dan Wegeland, and they explain he does their engraving. They keep talking about their engraving is done by a drawing of him by looking at daguerreotype of the painting. And they're very specific about that. But they do allude and talk about how there are people that think that this picture is a real picture of Joseph Smith. And so it does seem like Joseph Smith III, he mentions in 1910 that he has this daguerreotype of his father, and that they've sustained the characteristic likeness. Even just that word, characteristic likeness, doesn't sound like it looks exactly the same. Like if you use that today, it's sort of like it kind of looks, kind of looks like my dad. They've used this daguerreotype done, he says, in 1843, and he thinks the painting was done at the same time. Either way, he's saying both of these things were done before my father died. He was 11 years old when his dad died. He was 9 when that painting was done in September 1842. So he's very young. I don't believe he's a liar. I don't believe in going to extremes. I like to be really open-minded. But, it's definitely William B. McCarl goes into all of this trying to understand where Joseph Smith III is coming from. They're alluding that some people think that there's a daguerreotype of Joseph Smith that Carter's seen, and he claims that. He really does claim that, but his drawing matches perfectly the forward-facing painting. And so Junius F. Wells goes into great detail saying he talked to Emma, and there's this whole story that he told her about David Rogers doing this painting, and it's from life, the only forward-facing painting of Joseph Smith. I believe it was done from life. I do believe it was done by David Rogers. I think Joseph Smith III saying it and Junius F. Wells saying it, and there are other sources too. But and just how David Rogers was just like depressed, had a hard time, and then he just got Joseph to laugh. But I kind of wonder, and for my own analysis and other videos, I'll kind of link to where I did outline the Carter image, his photo of, it's obviously of the painting, because the nose lands like a good, like I would say an inch below my nose. I think no one's nose lands at that point. And so I'm an artist, I draw faces, there's specific half part of your face is where your eyes land up generally. But I also did another video talking about over 2 years ago, where I talked about camera distortion, because my friend took all these photos of the death mask from here, 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 and here. And when you're up here, you're down like this, your nose is going to land lower. And so that's my theory. I think they match perfectly to the painting. And Junius F. Wells said he asked Emma, what did Joseph think of that painting when it was done? And he said, it's a pretty good likeness. It's not that good. And I look like a silly boy. But he did a great job, And Emma didn't really, there's other statements where she said no one could capture him because his expression was always changing. Artists really had trouble. And so I think he was sort of always, I think if you're constantly talking and kind of moving around, there was difficulty with that. But they match exactly. If you watch my video, they're two exactly the same. So these photos of Joseph Smith matching so perfectly to this painting that's not a very good likeness. So Junius F. Wells, even though that is not a very good likeness, they state that. And then they mention later in this 1885 article that Carter has made very fine copies of this daguerreotype of that forward-facing painting. And they say that he never saw the daguerreotype, so he doesn't know. I don't know. I've investigated. I don't know of there being a real photo of Joseph Smith. And so that's why you kind of have half of like church history department that think, like the head person of the Saints book, really smart guy. He believes there's a daguerreotype of Joseph Smith. But then you've got all these other people that, was one person that talked to me that helped me out and knows a lot about Elisha Bibbins, but he doesn't, and I get it. I get where people are coming from, but it's split. So there is a lot of evidence when you read that 1910 letter. To me, I don't believe Joseph Smith III was a liar. I do think he could get a little bit confused. So again, where does this whole idea and all these blogs come from where it's not done by David Rogers, it's done by William Major? So as you read on, about page 46 of this article is where William B. McCarl starts to analyze the 1910 letter, where it's all really based on Joseph Smith III criticizing a painting done by a different artist in 1910 in Salt Lake City. And he doesn't like how the hair looks, the chin doesn't look right, but then he gets specific into what can't be, it's just not good because, well, you got the ring on the wrong hand. You have my father wearing his wedding ring on his right hand. My father always wore the wedding ring on his left hand. And so then William B. McCarl starts to spin with that, and he's like, but if it was a daguerreotype, it would have been flipped around, which is true. And then he's like, so I conclude that that painting was based on a daguerreotype. And that's really where that all comes from, is just the ring being on the wrong hand. Because in Joseph Smith III's own painting, RLDS painting, if you look at it, the wedding ring is on the right hand. So William B. McCarl is like, oh, well, it must be based on a daguerreotype because he had a daguerreotype of his father he's using to sustain the characteristic likeness of his father. And, even though it's an amazing article, we can all read the same sentence or anything, interpret it differently. To me, the word sustained, it's like, even in church, we use the word sustained a lot. Did you create that person? You're sustaining it. You're buoying them up. It already exists. You're just keeping it afloat. So 1910, that word makes sense because that painting is done in 1842. He's sustaining it by painting over it and looking at the daguerreotype, but it's not based on that because there's so much evidence it was done by David Rogers. It was done from life, but the daguerreotype is a basis to kind of maybe change it. And then all these other paintings that Community of Christ owns. And then you've got so many photographs, people taking photographs of the painting and then editing that. And so, I get where people come from. I'm going to explain where I'm coming from. And then again, I'm just going to finish with William B. McCarl in a second there and explain more where he gets into William Major. But Emma Smith, she has a daguerreotype done in 1845, we believe was done by Lucian Foster. Because I think the background looks really similar to my picture. It also looks similar to one of Wilford Woodruff and Phoebe. They both had their picture taken in Nauvoo, and where it's just sort of this wavy, not just sort of the shade looks about the same, in my opinion. Especially in Emma's picture. In my picture, you can just see this background that ends like it's draped over an object about the height of Joseph's head sitting in a chair. That's a unique thing. And then that shape of this sort of speckled background, I think it matches up really well. But anyway, the whole point, I've seen the daguerreotype that is based on. I've analyzed it. Community of Christ just doesn't want that daguerreotype public. They don't want a lot of things to be public. They're just very private about stuff. But I've analyzed it, and it definitely, the oval that you can kind of see faintly on that carte de visite that John Haystack owns. So Haystack, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. He owns that. He has his website. Give him credit there. But they definitely took that out of the case. And then if you've seen, a lot of people have seen this daguerreotype, it is really, really oxidized. So it's very obvious that they took the glass, they took it out of the case because you can see past that oval of where it's matted and it's in the case. So 1845, it's done. In the 1860s is when that first carte de visite was done. It's printed in Missouri by Julia Murdoch Smith because she lived in Missouri. But she comes back with that in the 1870s, around 1879. She's living with Emma, and she's sick and dying, and so is Emma, which is really sad. But she does bring that back. And so Emma did let go of that daguerreotype of herself in the 1860s. She let go of the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, that even in a letter to Joseph Smith III in 1866, she says, I believe that this is protecting my life. And so she really started to trust her children. But Junius F. Wells says in her lifetime, she never let anyone copy the painting or take photos of that forward-facing painting. that she said wasn't a very good likeness of her husband. So anything that perfectly matches that, Lucian Foster was not in Nauvoo in 1842. He didn't show up till 1844. And so there's no way that he was standing there as David Rogers is painting this and taking an exact photo as David Rogers is painting that. But there are too many strong references stating and implying that this was done by David Rogers. But again, you got William B. McCarl that's stating, well, the ring is on the wrong hand. And so it must be based on a daguerreotype in the RLDS painting, because Joseph Smith is on the right hand. And Joseph III says on left, so he can't, and it's nice. He doesn't want to think that he's a liar, which is great. I just think he's a little bit confused, because I started studying Sutcliffe Maudsley's artwork to see, well, did Joseph really wear a wedding ring on his right hand or his left? And in Sutcliffe Maudsley's artwork, you do see in, especially the very first painting that they say was done in 1842, the one where he looks like a little boy, and then he did one where he looks a little bit older, and then another one where he looks even older. They all look very different by Sutcliffe Maudsley, but he always had less hair than David Rogers depicted. But you do see a ring on the right hand. And so this whole theory of it being based on a daguerreotype comes from William B. McCarl, stating that he thinks sustained in the characteristic likeness means it was created by looking at the daguerreotype. I just think it means sustained, and he's painting over it and just keeping it fresh, as maybe the painting is cracking, because he does bring it from very humid, very, very humid Nauvoo, Illinois, right off the Mississippi River. Like, you were feet from the Mississippi River, and that's where Emma's bedroom was, and I'm sure she had the window open, so I'm sure there was some damage to that. And so, but William B. McCarl starts to think, oh, well, then if it's based on the daguerreotype, it's not done by David Rogers, so who did it? And he finds a 1926 article where, in the Ensign or whatever, they do state that William Major did a painting of the forward-facing painting of Joseph Smith. And so William B. McCarl starts to analyze that, but he does find that William Major couldn't have done that from life. Like, he did live, he was alive when Joseph Smith was alive, but he was on mission. But he thinks that he could have done it post-mortem. And so to me, that was quite a stretch, but we do know, it's taken over years of research and reading so many different things. There are many, even in Utah, many people looked at the daguerreotype of the painting and did their own paintings that were exactly like the forward-facing painting. I do believe that Carter just really copied that daguerreotype of the painting. And then I do believe that even back then, according to Junius Wells, people started to believe that this was the daguerreotype of Joseph Smith. Well, why didn't Joseph Smith III just copy the daguerreotype of his father? Why did he just take a photo of the painting? And so again, going back to Emma Smith's daguerreotype, my picture was copied in the 1860s, according to Gowan Weaver, up in San Francisco, that I don't know previously. I was just really floored that he really believed that it was copied from a daguerreotype. It's taken me time to think that my picture was a copy of a daguerreotype. I believe that it was maybe just another photo done at the end of his life, and if you watch my oldest videos, I thought it was a saltwater print that just got copied, or they had the negative, or they took that same saltwater print. I just had I didn't know, but as I talked to professionals, Gowan Weaver thinks that there's so much contrast to my picture and that it's an oval, because Emma Smith's daguerreotype is in that same oval shape. Same with Wilfred Woodruff and Phoebe's picture. That's how daguerreotypes were. And so to people that know a lot more than me, like the man that studied it back in March, and it cost me a lot of money, but it was worth it. It's a copy from, he thinks, possibly a daguerreotype or some other metal, but to me that was huge. And so what if, again, talking about Emma Smith's daguerreotype, we got one really clear copy that Julia Murdoch Smith had done in Missouri in the 1860s. And I read the memoirs of Joseph Smith III. It was her photo album that was found and she lived in Missouri. In the 1860s, you've got Joseph Smith III and Alexander Smith and David Hiram, the only living adult sons of Joseph Smith, living in Kendall County, Illinois, which is the same county that J.S. Bibbins lived in the 1860s. And on Ancestry, I have found J.S. Bibbins. He was an artist back then. That's when my picture was printed and ended up in a Smith family photo album, according to the Juvenile Instructor, as they were finding that description of it. When I bought it, he had just thrown it up there and sent it to me. And I did ask the eBay seller, so, he said again, 10 years later, I don't know who this is, but it's from a Smith family album printed in the same county that Joseph Smith's 3 sons lived in the 1860s. So they lived there at that time. It's either got to be very early 1860s or past 1866 is when they stopped putting the sun stamp on the back of carte de visites. It was like a tax. So it was the year 1866 that Joseph Smith III moves to Kendall County to Plano, Illinois. Again, J.S. Bibbins is running his business in Newark. So they're like approximately 10 miles away from each other, the cities. Who knows where their house and whatever else were, but that wasn't that far to go. It's not inconceivable. And so it's possible, again, J.S. Bibbins' own father, Elisha Bibbins, I've read their whole family history. Again, I'm LDS. We're big into genealogy, studying ancestry, and then I found many genealogical pages that I had linked on my website that disappeared for the Bibbins, which kind of sucked because I had so much information. But Ancestry still has so much of it. And so I'll just kind of show you some screenshots of the Bibbins family. But it's interesting because that man was a Methodist circuit rider that knew Emma Smith and her family in Harmony, Pennsylvania. He was a circuit rider there. So then here is the son of the man that converted Emma Smith's father. Well, he was out there, apparently Elisha Bibbins and Emma and all these other people, it was all about praying in the woods. And so she was out there praying for her father, and then her father was converted to Christianity and then allowed prayer in their home. And so the descendants of Joseph Smith know this whole story, and they know about Elisha Bibbins. Well, Elisha Bibbins moved. Well, first he moves, he gets married about 1814 and lives near Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so he's in Harmony, but then he moves more east. And so there was only one, I've researched, there's only one Elisha Bibbins for sure. The photographic artist's father knew Emma. Around 1838, the Bibbins family came to Newark, Illinois. And that's where they settled. And then the father, Elisha Bibbins, died visiting Scranton. And so they have all these books of Methodist circuit riders that mention Elisha Bibbins. There's only one in those books. And so it's super fascinating. So Emma could have been visiting. She definitely visited Joseph Smith III in the 1860s. There was an Amboy conference, not quite in Kendall County, but that was where he became the president, the leader, the prophet of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She went on a boat and they went there. And then at some point, his church grew in Plano, and then he eventually moved there. But they already had things set up. They already had a church there. They had a printing press. He was visiting. So anyway, the 1860s date of the type, I've heard from several different professionals. My carte de visite was printed in the 1860s. Could have been Emma that did that. And again, it's very possible that they took that glass off the front. Air hits that daguerreotype, it starts to turn black. It oxidizes. It starts to not look good anymore. And so Emma Smith's 1845 daguerreotype copied really well in the 1860s, really well. And for Julia Murdoch Smith, I'm sure she just let her take it, and then it ended up back. And then in the 1880s, I saw one other carte de visite. Definitely, you just have to research this, but the type of paper is more 1880s. It's much later. You see that it's not copying well anymore. It's very high contrast. You're not seeing those details anymore. And then you just don't have any more. And then, Emma Smith died in 1879. And so allegedly, I love reading all these blogs out there. I think they're all super great, even though sometimes I don't totally agree with them. There is Kim Marshall that talks about this one letter that I can't find, but I'll just give you a link to her website, which I don't think she's lying. I would love to find the letter. I don't really think it would be super, super helpful to my case, but it's interesting. This wording to this John A. Robinson, where he mentions that he's now in 1879. So again, I think that my picture was printed in the 1860s by a man that his father knew Emma Smith. I mean, Emma maybe didn't know J.S. Bibbins himself, but she knew his father. And so she must have seen that name, Methodist. It's like, is your dad? Oh my goodness, you know. I think it's really an interesting theory that she could have just gone back and visited and copied it. Maybe she gave like this carte de visite to like Lucy Smith, the sister of Joseph Smith, or to Catherine, or just someone else, and she kept the daguerreotype. So either way, I don't believe Joseph Smith III got my carte de visite. But by 1879, according to Marshall, he's writing Johnny Robinson saying, will you go ahead and copy this? And he's not the one that copied, the one that went to the Library of Congress. I'll kind of post who did that. And I've talked to Gracia Jones a little bit about that. So we know who ended up copying the painting onto a piece of paper, but he's saying to see if it'll copy well. I don't know, maybe I'll send this to you if it doesn't. But it's interesting from that letter, what is interesting is sort of that doubt. I don't know if it'll copy well. Like, how would he not know that a daguerreotype can't be copied? Because at this point, 1879, Julia Murdoch Smith has left her abusive husband. She is living with Emma, who is dying. She's brought back, I mean, the daguerreotype is there. She's brought back this photo album. I mean, it's already been printed, that copy of the 1845 daguerreotype of Emma Smith holding baby David Hiram Smith. Julia Murdoch Smith is living with her. That's where she dies. She dies in Nauvoo, not in Missouri. Joseph Smith III, there's no way he wouldn't have known. He would have looked through this photo album of him as he's contributed pictures to Julia, because Julia dies very soon after. Very, very soon after Emma Smith dies in 1879. Julia then dies. But this photo album has been compiled and kept up. And so Joseph Smith III would have seen that. He knew. He knew that you could copy a daguerreotype clearly. But I'm going to kind of pop up my theory, and I'm going to show you my picture flipped around, because it's possible, according to Godwin Weaver, that possibly the reason, because I talked about it being the right perspective, there could be, you know, a certain type of prism that they would put on the daguerreotype camera to flip things around so it's in the right perspective. They did do that for buildings, especially landscapes. They knew it flipped perspective. Reversing prism is what they would put on there, so that when you took that photo, it'd be in the right perspective. There's one theory. He also says that they would intentionally take a daguerreotype of a daguerreotype, and that would make the contrast even higher. And he says that really makes sense looking at your picture, that it's maybe a daguerreotype of a daguerreotype. So it's a carte de visite of a daguerreotype of a daguerreotype. Highly possible. And so what I'm going to show you is what I think maybe the original was. It would have been maybe flipped around. And I'm going to show you as dark as currently Emma Smith's 1845 daguerreotype is, which is very, very oxidized. So just definitely that doubt in this letter to Johnny Robinson, I think could be because maybe this way he's inherited in 1879 that was already copied, and the clear copy went to someone else, you know, and Emma kept the original until 1879. I mean, that's a good 10 years of something. Maybe the glass broke when they took it off, who knows, or it stayed off. It would have gotten so dark, it would have been almost impossible to copy again, and it would have been pretty much worthless. And he said many of mothers wouldn't really be wanted, according to this letter. This was written in 1879 when Emma died. And so I think he just opted to photograph the painting and tell people this is, and then he's used the daguerreotype to sustain the characteristic likeness of his father. He's saying this is authentic. This is what my father looked like. This is authentic. And so that's just sort of his wording. It's authentic. My painting is better than yours. But again, the ring being on the right hand, left hand, he's just wrong. I don't think he's a liar. I think he's someone who was so young when his father died, you know, and he's just sometimes very critical of anything coming from Utah. And at this point, the sons, if you haven't studied all this, around the 1880s, 1890s, Joseph Smith III and Alexander all moved to Missouri. So that's all they ended up in Missouri. So they kind of went from Nauvoo, Plano, Iowa, Missouri. So by the time this letter is written in Missouri, he's already repainted that painting done by someone else. He's commissioned. And then there's so many different copies. And then if you see something that looks like the Carter image, but slightly different, it is possible it was a different painting, because there's so many paintings. The Community of Christ says they don't even know how many they have. It was just copied so many times, which is so interesting. So if you've made it to the end of this, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm thankful so much for your support. Hopefully I haven't offended anyone. Again, I have great respect for all these other bloggers and William B. McCarl, but I just don't agree that his whole theory that's based on, again, thinking William Majors did that painting because of a 1926 Ensign article where they state that, William Major did a forward-facing painting. It's been amazing to research all this and so much fun, but I don't think Joseph Smith III's a liar. I don't think the A.B. Seller is a liar. I do believe him. I don't see any reason. I don't see evidence of him lying. And so I can talk more about that later, and this video is gonna be really long, but I'm gonna let it be. And hopefully this just settles some controversies, and then you can understand why, if you go to Joseph Smith papers, they really believe that forward-facing painting was done from life. Was it changed by Joseph Smith III? Probably. Yes, he did. I think he blatantly says that, and he even says, like, this doesn't look exactly like my father. Emma said it wasn't a very good likeness of her husband, and he thought he looked like a silly boy. I mean, a lot of this artwork, there was artistic liberty done from that, but is it worth looking at? Because you can see the lapel that matches that darker upper. You see that in my photograph. The backgrounds, it's just, I'm rambling and spinning off at this point. I've redone this video, I apologize. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll come out with more, we'll see. I might talk about other stuff. But anyway, have a good day.